Hi, welcome back to StoryHive On Location Kelowna. I'm Rob O'Day, and we are coming back with another live episode from Kelowna with support brought to you by TELUS STORYHIVE. Today, we are sitting in Kelowna with Shannon Lester, an incredible artist who has a really unique color palette that I am absolutely obsessed with. Thank you for having me and sitting down. I appreciate
thanks so much
your time.
for coming. Yeah, this is going to be so fun filming at home.
Yes, I'm really excited because we get to sit with your beautiful pieces, which is now I get to see them up close and not online. It's the size difference is quite amazing.
A lot of people say my work looks better in person, and it's a nice compliment, but I don't know. Sometimes it doesn't feel like a compliment. Like, I guess on social media, like it's like that big.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing. You don't get to see the detail and the amount of work.
Yeah.
Let's start off with who you are for the people, where you're from, and how you got into being a painter.
I'm Shannon. I was born in Vancouver, and both my parents are Newfoundlanders, so when I was about 5, we moved back to Newfoundland, and that's where I grew up. And I've always been an artist, ever since I was like, my first words were color, color, color. As a child, I would draw on the walls, and art has always been my obsession from day one, pretty much. And then in high school, I really started to take it seriously because I got a lot of praise and attention for my art growing up. And I had some really amazing teachers that really encouraged me and put me into advanced placement art. My journey kind of brought me to the Okanagan. When I was like 17, my dad was living here, so I moved here and been here ever since, on and off. I lived all over. I went to Japan for 6 years and lived all over Canada, but this is home now, the Okanagan. I spent most of my 20s in Osaka. It was pretty amazing. It's where I kind of got to experience life as an adult. I went there to teach English for a year and I ended up staying for 6 years.
Did that being in Japan give you a different perspective to paint?
Yeah, I think my experiences in Japan as a foreigner, in my 20s, so it was my formative years, so I think it really shaped me as a person because I absorbed so much of Japanese culture and became really integrated into the society there.
What led you to being, like as an artist, you usually go through a bunch of different stages trying to figure out what you're A, good at, and B, what you like to do. What was it that made you click that was like oceans and mythical creatures?
When I was a teenager, I've always had like really intense visions and just like these surreal fantasies of things that I wanted to create, but I didn't have the technical skill to do it. So I would paint my visions and I'd get frustrated because they didn't look like what I saw in my head. So one of my biggest goals as an artist has been to build up the like technical painting ability to be like, okay, I envision this, I could paint it. Definitely very influenced by surrealism. The whole mythology and mysticism and spirituality and nature and all those things that are in my art now, they've been there all along. Because I aim for realism, I'm not interested in being a photorealist, but I want to convey my visions realistically so people can connect to them. I went to art school for 6 years, but in art school, I didn't learn any of the techniques or skills that I have now as a painter. It was all about experimentation and opening your mind and all those fun things, and I had a great time, but I consider myself to be mostly self-taught with painting because I use more traditional techniques that are not considered to be contemporary now in art schools. It's more abstraction and conceptual art. One thing is I'm very prolific. I don't care how good the painting is. I'm going to keep painting. That's something I translate to my students is you're going to make a lot of really crappy art in order to get to the point where you could make good art. Like you have to actually practice and build your skills. You have to be drawing constantly. You have to be studying.
Was there ever a point where it was hard to let the artwork become what it is without having that like preconception of what you want it to be?
I think that's what art school was. It was all about letting go of my creative vision in order to just experiment and open myself up to different techniques and different mediums and different ways of thinking. I think the biggest thing that stops people from creating is that, critical side of the brain that says this is crap, this isn't good enough. I don't have that filter. I'm like, let's make it, and if it's not good enough, let's make it better. I just learned that perfect balance of just having that little bit of looseness and letting go of the outcome, it just flows better that way. Because if you're just like, this isn't looking what I want it to look like, and you just get so frustrated, then that's just stopping you. So I just keep creating.
You've worked with oil as well, I assume, with school.
Yeah, and I love oil. I love the way they blend. My painting style is based on oil techniques, and I try to achieve the same effects as oil paintings with acrylics because I just don't have the patience. And I'm so creative that if I'm just like working on one piece for months, it would probably just drive me insane, or I wouldn't be satisfied. If I had a huge studio work, I work on numerous oil paintings at the same time. I probably would, if I get back into a more industrial studio rather than my home studio, I'd probably get back into oils again too.
It's cool that you're the transition from oil to acrylic and then having to figure out how to do the same techniques.
I've developed a lot of my own techniques because acrylics dry so fast you can't blend. I've had to like find ways around that, and there's many different ways to achieve similar effects to oils with acrylic. So it's just been a matter of doing it and trial and error and finding what works best for me over many, many years.
With being an artist, what has been the biggest challenge that you faced?
Being an artist, there's always the usual financial challenges because, number one, it's an expensive pastime, expensive hobby, or whatever you want to call it, passion, and we all have to pay the rent. That's been a barrier, but luckily I've been pretty fortunate to be able to sell my art for a long time, and I have various different creative outlets, including teaching, and I'm also a drag performer, and an event producer, so I've been producing events and shows for years. And so managed to rise up above the financial burdens. I've also been a little bit challenged by how conservative people can be when it comes to art. I have no filter, I never censor myself. I draw and paint whatever I want. And then it's not always considered suitable to be shown in public, which is tricky, but I've also found ways around that.
I think you brought up a really good point too, where sometimes this is kind of why I like being a musician, as like you were saying, sometimes you're painting things that may be considered controversial, or, I mean, art is art. You can't really judge it for what it is.
The word family friendly has been thrown at me so many times in my life, and I'm so sick of it because I'm very family friendly. I love my little nieces, I love my family, and of course I want to protect children and everything. When it comes to going into a gallery, and there's a bit of a double standard, like female nudes tend to be more accepted in our society, and then if it's a male nude, it's like, oh, like that's too much.
We live in a weird world right now where art shouldn't be lumped into a political view in my mind. And that's where I like being an artist. I feel it's our duty to be able to say the things that no one wants to say.
We get to explore any topic, including very dark topics, but in a very safe and positive and creative way. It's good that I've been able to, fully be myself as an artist in such a small kind of conservative town as Kelowna.
It can be very conservative, and I feel that what you're doing is needed.
The thing people have always said to me is like, oh, well, what you do with the edgy art and the drag, like you should be in a bigger city like Vancouver or Toronto, like you're not going to fit in here. And I'm like, this is my home.
Yeah, no.
I'm going to keep creating my art here. And people have always appreciated that because they're like, wow, like I've never seen anything like this in Kelowna.
You mentioned that you also host events and that you do drag. And I think that's an amazing creative outlet.
And actually, like where I started drag was amazing because we started doing drag in Japan. I met my friend Mikey. He's an Australian filmmaker and photographer, and he was dating a Japanese drag queen at the time, and we were like both artists and looking for a way to get our art out there in Japan, and we're like, why don't we start a drag performance art duo? And we did, and it was called Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, and our first performance was in this underground club in Kyoto, and you had to actually enter through the subway. But it was this very established drag show there called Diamonds Are Forever. And we did like very performance art, kind of dark, avant-garde, experimental drag, and people loved it. And we just ended up performing all over Japan, and it was amazing. And then I came back to Canada, to Kelowna, to do my master's. And there was no drag in Kelowna then, no scene. So we created one here. And we started producing our own shows, and just kind of took off from there, and I've been doing drag for 15 years now.
Do you still have a gallery downtown?
I was the resident artist at Studio on Water. I've taken a step back now just to focus on my own business and my own art, because I was helping a lot with the gallery in the first couple years being open.
How does that feel to like be put in a gallery and be a resident?
It was just at the beginning of the pandemic, and it was called Sea of Love, and that was an amazing feeling because it was my first paid Carfax exhibition where I was getting paid to show my art, which as it should be, in a proper gallery, and it was quite a great experience. And then one of my recent goals has been to get represented by a local commercial gallery. Being represented by the Studio on Water was actually a wonderful experience. It felt great. I'm very grateful for that time I had there. And it was like checked off something on my list to find a gallery to represent me.
How do you go about getting the funding and the help to do so?
I haven't received any external funding. I'm very self-sufficient. I sell my art. I've started doing private lessons in my studio. So I have income. A lot of people always tell me about grants, and I'm like, yeah, I'll apply for one day. But
I was curious, I feel like, because there's a huge world of grants out there, especially for the arts industry in Canada. But it'd be cool to see an art festival locally.
The closest thing that I think of is Base Coast, where it's very much like art installations all throughout the woods, and it's on my list to apply. I'm bad with applying for things. But yeah, I love the idea of art and music combining, and that's really a focus right now as well with my current work and with diving back into music again.
Have you ever done live painting with music in the background, like to bands?
Yes, actually, I did some live painting with live music as well at the studio. I think it's a great combination. Whenever I have an exhibition, a reception, I always hire a local musician because art and music is just so perfect together. It complements each other so well.
Now that you're diving back into music, into the production aspect, do you feel like you're listening to music differently?
So differently. Oh my God. It's taken music to a new level for me. Like I could hear, how everything is made, and it's just so interesting getting behind the science of sound design. And yeah. And I recently got some really good headphones and some new speakers, so I've really been really listening to music.
Just vibing.
Yeah.
That's awesome. With your future and where you're working towards now, could you potentially do a touring art show?
I did. One year, I created a kind of a naughty surrealist card game. So I planned a cross-Canada tour. I had a vehicle at the time, and a buddy came along, and we brought our camping gear, and we just stopped in cities all across Canada, and I looked into the galleries and places that might sell my game and tried to promote my art as we went. I called it the Alien Art Invasion. I was doing a lot of alien-inspired art at the time, I think. And I drove from Kelowna to Toronto, and that was a really fun experience.
Has there ever been a point where you were doing landscapes or anything? Or has it always been...
Well, I've never been interested in traditional landscapes. I find them incredibly boring. And I find with the whole Canadian art thing, it's always landscape focused, which to me speaks to the conservatism of the art world. I'm very inspired by nature, but there's so much more to nature than just a pretty image. And that's what I want to convey with my art. But in order to be able to do that, if I want to paint a mystical landscape, I still need to know how to paint a landscape. So I have been working hard to be able to do that. And the past couple of years I have been teaching to beginners on nature painting. By teaching, I've improved my own landscape painting as well. So I have done it, I just find it very boring. I'll paint a landscape and then I have to put a Bigfoot or some kind of mystical creature in it, otherwise it's just not doing it for me.
You being in Japan, there's so many cultural aspects that I can imagine absorbed in all the different, from painting, music, with the drag, to be in a country with such deep roots.
That was what blew me away, because our history as Canada is very short not with full respect to the indigenous history, but our history as a colonized country is very short compared to the extremely long history of Japanese culture. And they are very special in that they've worked very hard to preserve their traditions and their culture. And that blew me away, the history, because I grew up in Newfoundland, where there is a unique culture in Canada, but it doesn't have deep roots. Its own identity is fairly young. The biggest thing I learned from Japan was respect. They just have such a culture of respect, respecting other people, respecting nature. And that's something when I came back to Canada, I was like, we don't have that. It's just ingrained into who they are, bowing to each other, you know, like the way they speak to each other and the reverence they have for the seasons and just so many different things that are built into their culture.
I've said it, you brought up a point that I've said for a long time, is that North America is the teenager of the world.
Yeah, and
we are
America,
so young.
The really bratty teenager.
Yeah, like our culture, like there's buildings that are that have stood 4 times longer than our culture and country has even been around. And I think that's why North America is kind of so crazy, is because it is that we're trying to figure out what works for North America. I think that everywhere else is kind of just like, that culture is ingrained in them for so long that it kind of...
So deeply rooted.
Like, being the creatives of this generation, we get to be the ones who define the art.
Yeah, I think about that sometimes. I'm like, the next generation, are they going to think that art created by AI is like their art? Like, is that going to be the new thing?
It's
like,
a weird concept to think about.
Yeah, it keeps evolving what we call art and music and culture, and now technology is taking over, which I don't think is a bad thing at all. But
you're the first artist that I've spoke with that have said that technology taking over the art industry isn't super detrimental.
I'm as old school as you could get. Mm-hmm. I draw and I paint. I make things with my hands. But I believe that technology can and is be like a very valuable tool, and it's created from us. And it's just a matter of how we use it and what we do with it, you know? Like, there's been points where I was a little afraid, and of course, you know, like these people using AI to steal other artists' styles and make money from it, that's wrong. I don't believe that AI is inherently evil or wrong. It's just a matter of how we use it and what we do with it.
No, it's a really good point that it could be the technological renaissance for artists if we were to embrace it in the proper way.
There's no reason why we can't use technology to help us enhance what we do with our hands. The beauty of AI is that it has access to all of the information that we've put out there. You know, it's just, it still comes from us. I still believe that it comes from us.
It's a great way to say it. That's one thing I say is, you can create a program and it can do all these amazing things other than feel our emotion.
Yeah. Well, I've interacted with AI a bit, and it has such a wonderful understanding and appreciation of art. And the thing I've realized is that it will never be able to make art like us. It can mimic, it could reproduce, it could even create its own art, but it will never be able to make human art because it's not human. And that's what makes art so special, is that it truly expresses an individual, you know, so nothing to fear in my opinion.
No, it's a good way to see it, because there is, if you break it down, the art industry in human and AI, it's kind of like the mainstream and the underground.
Yeah.
And it's like, you'll never be able to take away from the underground how amazing it is.
Yeah, and it's like the more commercial realms, like digital graphic design, like it probably really sucks for graphic designers now. But for me, someone who makes things with my hands.
I never thought about a graphic designer's challenge.
Well, now it's all being taken over by AI.
Yeah.
You get AI to make your ad in 2 seconds.
Yeah,
Why
it's
would you pay
pretty
a
crazy.
graphic designer?
Yeah.
But you can't get AI to create a physical painting. I mean, maybe you can soon with new robot painters. I don't know. But
as a teacher, getting to inspire the next generation, you find that this younger generation has the same creative juices? I've been curious, like the tablet generation. Are they just as creative as the ones who had the imagination playing with toys?
There is a newer generation of artists who will create their art using their computer, and I could never connect to that, because even when I look at it, I'm like, it doesn't look the same as a painting to me. It might look more perfect in some ways, but it's not a painting. But I don't know, because most of my students tend to be more mature. That I don't have a lot of younger students.
Okay, so you're seeing our age and higher versus a younger generation coming in.
Yeah, I mean, I have some younger students too, and they're just, and some of them are very creative.
Your artwork moving forward and the new series that you're working, having no vision for it, and you're just letting yourself be creative. Do you think it'll bring you back to that initial love of the creativity again?
It already has. I had almost a creative death last month where I suddenly was like, I wanted to bring my art to a new level and go in a different direction and just push myself forward to evolve. And it brought me to a dark place where it's like, I don't know what's next. But then it came, and it was, rather than it being something completely new, it was an evolution of everything I've done over the past 10 plus years with my art, because I've been producing so much. I started going back into everything I've created, and I just started to draw from all of that, and then it birthed something new. I've already planned out dozens of new paintings. It's just a matter of me doing them now.
If there was any advice that you would give aspiring painters who are trying to start their career, whether it be they want to make a living off of it or they're just trying to get into it as a hobby, what advice would you give them?
I would give them the same advice that one of my professors, Jim Calnan, he's an incredible local artist, gave me, and it's the most simple advice I've ever gotten, and it's just don't stop creating, keep on drawing, keep on painting, no matter where you are in your life, whether it's your main focus or not. Continue drawing and painting and developing your skills and doing it, regardless of how good it is. Keep doing it, and that will bring you to the right place. And I always had his voice in my head saying, just keep doing it. It doesn't matter whether it's good or not. It doesn't matter whether you're a professional artist at this stage in your life. Just keep doing it. Like, the whole don't give up thing is very, very relevant, and it's what got me to here today. I look back on some of my paintings from years ago, and they were definitely not as good as I thought they were then. But I see the evolution, and I see where I have success as an artist. I'm a professional artist. I couldn't say that when I was in my 20s, but I could say it now. So it's just a matter, you have to put in the work. You have to have that discipline to actually pursue it, because it's a very hard path. Being an artist is not a job that's accepted by society. It's not something you could go to school for and then be like, okay, here's your job. It doesn't work like that. You have to be so creative, so resourceful, and have a lot of stamina. And I definitely wouldn't recommend to anybody pursuing a career as an artist, but for me, it's just, I never had any choice. It's who I am. The main piece of advice is to keep creating. And also value the creative journey that you're on. Don't value the success you have in the world based on that. Don't value how people respond to it. Value your own development. That is key.
I love that. And to see, hopefully, that advice will help somebody who's coming in, because I find there's a lot more people coming into their creative mind now in later life than earlier in life, which is kind of a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah, and they're still have just as much self-doubt and insecurity, but the key is to be able to let go too. To let go of your expectations of what your art is going to be and how people are going to perceive it. Just enjoy the process.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Well, I want to enjoy the process and dive into some of your new pieces, so we'll be right back.